Right now is not a good time to be the PR team for the Mormon Church, because while they're busy dealing with the investigative journalism done by Murray Jones and the New Zealand Herald into the church's handling of abuse in Aotearoa, another journalist, this time in Denmark, has uncovered yet more abuse in the Mormon community. So from New Zealand to Zealand, the church is getting a lot of attention at the moment that it doesn't want around an issue that is more and more clearly being revealed as a global issue for the LDS Church. The LDS Church has an abuse problem. Now, I don't want to hear all you whataboutists in the comments trying to defend the church by saying other religions have an abuse problem too. While that may be true, it doesn't undermine the need to address the problem the Mormon Church has, and really, if you think about it, the fact that other churches have a problem too shouldn't make you feel any better about the church's actions, as the LDS Church claims to be led directly by the voice of God.
Do you know what the word prophet means? He speaks for God.
The Mormon Church should not be making the same, and in some cases worse, institutional decisions compared to other churches when it comes to handling and preventing abuse. You would in fact expect it to be a standout, a rare anomaly in a sea of ecclesiastical abuse, a beacon that other churches look to. And yet, here we are with another documentary about how the Mormon Church seems to have failed to properly handle and report abuse. So let's get into it. The documentary is called Tro, Hoop og voldtægt, which translates as Faith, Hope and Rape. A pretty provocative title, but unfortunately, it accurately portrays the subject matter. I was fortunate enough to be able to watch the documentary and have it translated from Danish to English for me very kindly by a friend. I'll be discussing exclusively what the documentary says, as well as some news articles reporting on this. I haven't gone and done any sort of further investigation myself. I haven't looked into the court documents or anything like that. I was simply able to watch the documentary, and so within that paradigm, allow me to now return and report on Tro, Hoop og voldtægt. This documentary tells the story of Kieran, whose now ex-husband Peter drugged and raped her over several years, from approximately 2012 to 2018. Kieran formally reported his abuse to the church twice, both in 2013 and 2018. Both times, it was not reported to the police by church leaders. Instead, after the first report in 2013, Peter faced a church disciplinary council, which he reportedly sat out of because at the time he himself was a member of the High Council. Peter was disfellowshipped for a year, but he faced no legal consequences for his actions at the time because no report was made to the police by any of the men in the room who were aware that Peter had drugged and raped his wife multiple times. After his disfellowshipment had ended, in 2015 Kieran and Peter moved to the USA for a time, and he began drugging her and raping her again. In December 2016, Peter wrote out what was labelled as a post-nuptial agreement, which said, among other things, "This document is for you to show that I am convinced that I will never ever abuse you in any way again." This self-made promise proved ineffective at preventing Peter from acting on what church leaders would later describe as an addiction to raping his wife. Now, this part is just my opinion, and I don't know the cause of Peter's abusive behaviour towards his wife. But it seems to me that in these sorts of cases, particularly when parties want to avoid involving the police and breaking up a marriage, there is an attempt made to soften or lessen the reality of the situation. Labelling Peter an addict has the effect of making him a victim too, and minimising his level of responsibility for his behaviour. But just in case I need to remind anyone, addiction to rape is not a thing. With the rape continuing in spite of Peter's promise, Kieran went to her bishop in 2018, and not only did he provide terrible advice, the bishop was also related to Peter. In an email to both Kieran and Peter, the bishop advised that they put a lock on the bedroom door, so that Kieran could create a safe space from her husband's addiction. He also advised that Peter talk to his children about what he was doing to their mother, and provided an outline of how he should approach this conversation, telling the children what he has been doing to their mother. Is he serious? What is this, some sort of twisted family home evening lesson assignment? This would only serve to make them feel responsible for keeping their mother safe from their father, and make them feel guilty for condemning their father because of the doctrine of eternal families, which also means that they don't feel their father can be removed from the situation. This sort of thing would not only traumatize these young people, but would potentially deter them from reporting abuse in the future. It's this kind of ecclesiastical behaviour that prevents the proper authorities from getting involved and allows abuse to continue. Now finally, Kieran had had enough. She left Peter that same year in 2018, and she also resigned from the church. In the autumn of 2022, supported by her new partner Thomas, Kieran finally felt she could report Peter to the police herself. On the 28th of September 2022, Peter was arrested and he confessed. He was initially charged based on that confession for a period from 2012 to 2018. The prosecution started just 2 months later, and when it did, Peter only pled guilty to 4 of the charges. The documentary didn't say how many charges there were total that were brought against him, but it did say this. Peter changed his confession and only admitted to the rapes from before the church was made aware in 2013. According to the documentary, the maximum sentence Peter could have received was 8 years. And he got 2 years and 3 months. It is unclear why exactly Peter decided to deny the rape that he had enacted on Kieran after 2013, to which he had initially confessed, and instead chose to limit his confession to instances of rape that occurred before the church was made aware in 2013. Why would he choose to deny, and how was he able to deny, raping Kieran between 2013 and 2018, the period during which the church knew about the drugging and rape, in spite of clear evidence that he had been assaulting her? Remember the post-nuptial agreement from 2016 where Peter promised not to rape his wife anymore? Not considered. The bishop's email in 2018 recommending a lock on the door, and how Peter talked to his children about him trying not to rape their mother? Not considered. I don't understand why this evidence was not considered, and neither do the legal experts in the documentary. Also, according to the documentary, the police and prosecutors should have notified Kieran that Peter was changing his plea, and Kieran says that she wasn't notified. The documentary raises a large question mark over the handling of the case not just by the church, but by the prosecuting authorities as well. But the behaviour of the prosecuting authorities and the nuances of Danish law and prosecution are a bit out of my remit. Maybe RFM could do a Danish law special on this or something. What I can say is that not only is this the story of horrific domestic and sexual abuse, it is also the story of the church following a by now well-established pattern of trying to contain and deal with abuse inside its own institutional structures without involving the state authorities. It's a story we've heard time and time again, and it's a story which clearly somebody didn't want to be told publicly, as there was an attempt made to prevent it from being broadcast at all. Originally intended to air in September, the journalist who made this documentary, Michael Teschel, made this announcement on his Facebook page. Quite many have asked with understandable wonder, where is the documentary about the Mormon church going? It should be no secret that the documentary has met massive resistance. There has been an attempt to put a ban on TV2 being able to show the documentary, but on Thursday, the court of Fredericksburg gave the green light to allow us to broadcast. So here it comes. Faith, Hope and Rape airs Monday the 11th of November 2024 at 8:40 p.m. on TV2. When the documentary finally did air, the church of course released a statement. When church leaders become aware of abuse, they encourage members to report it to the police, fully supporting the law and cooperating with public authorities. As the documentary suggests, this advice was also given here. This is a straw man argument made by the church. The question of the documentary and government officials isn't whether the church put the responsibility on Kieran, the victim, to report the abuse to police. It is whether or not the church leaders themselves had a responsibility to report under Danish law, and whether church discipline was used as an alternative to involving the police and the Danish judicial system. Also, Kieran herself disputes that she was encouraged by the church leaders to go to the police at all.
Er det nogen omkring dig, tilråder dig at tale med nogen uden for kirken, eller anbefaler dig at gøre det?
Kun min bror opfordrer mig til at gå til politiet.
Was there anyone around you that encouraged you to talk to anyone outside of the church, or recommend that you do that? Just my brother encouraged me to go to the police. So all this looks bad for the church from a PR sense, but could it actually affect them in terms of their religious status in Denmark? The Danish SF party are looking to make it more difficult for religious groups to operate in parallel to the law, where internal rules in the religious community operate outside the ordinary legal system. According to Serdal Benley, the case from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints is an excellent example of just that. I think clearly we have to send a signal and sanction by taking the recognition from them. When the leadership of a church covers up something criminal that the police should deal with, then it should be done. In trying to protect the good name of the church by keeping abuse in-house, the church often ends up actually harming their reputation when the abuse inevitably comes to light, particularly it seems in the eyes of government officials. And now some officials are threatening loss of state recognition, which gives them both tax benefits and the right to conduct legally binding marriages. We know the church cares deeply about protecting its tax exemptions, because they once escalated the case of the Preston Temple's tax exemption all the way to the European Court of Human Rights, just to keep the 100 100% exemption for the temple instead of the 80% exemption that they ended up with. However, as Lisbeth Christofferson, no relation, of Roskilde University points out, when a religious community violates the requirements for recognition, according to the Religious Communities Act, it must have the opportunity to correct it. But that raises the question, if the church's internal discipline structure as it now stands is seen as a violation, then how exactly would the church correct it? Would they have to discontinue church discipline, or only conduct church discipline once an individual has already been reported to the police? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. I think the ultimate question here, though, is whether, in practice, church discipline is being used in lieu of the Danish legal system. That's something that it seems this documentary has spurred Danish lawmakers to make a definitive judgment on. Church Minister Morten Dahlin has chosen to initiate an oversight case against the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, also known as the Mormon Church. This appears from an answer to a Section 20 question to the minister. Here the Minister of Church emphasises that Denmark has one legal system, which must be respected by everyone, including religious communities. The supervisory proceedings may ultimately lead to the deprivation of the church's recognition as a religious community. The country that gave us the Christus statue, which Russell M. Nelson so proudly made the new logo for our church, may now be on the verge of removing the church's legal status from them. Now, this video wouldn't have been possible without two groups of people. The first are the members of the church in Denmark, who kindly took the time to help me explore this issue and provided key insights into the current climate surrounding this documentary. The second group are of course my monthly donors and channel members, whose financial support helps me do this work full time. Now, I can't offer you Danish citizenship, so sadly you can't join the first group of people, but the second group is always open to new members. It's really important for me to have direct monthly contributions independent of YouTube's ad revenue system, as videos like this one are often limited in their ability to be monetized due to the difficult subject matter that we've been covering. If you'd like to support reporting on these kinds of important issues, $10, $15, $20 a month at the donor box link helps keep this channel going. Finally, if you or anyone you know has been affected by the issues discussed in this video, there are resources in the description. I mentioned at the beginning of this video the reporting done by Murray Jones and the New Zealand Herald, and for more information about that, click here.